Upset mom of a 3-year-old opens husband's car trunk and uncovers a secret that was unknown for 7 years. When Rebecca searched her husband's car, she found empty cans and pill bottles all scattered inside. But there was something even bigger that was going to be the nightmare for Rebecca. This was just the starting of the destruction of her life. Hidden stuff. I did some digging and found empty pill bottles and many empty beer cans in his car, Rebecca said. The wife found out that her husband had been hiding a substance abuse problem from her, all of which he hid in the same car in which he drove his own child to school. Further discovery. The pills weren't the only horrifying thing Rebecca was to come across. She decided to search further in the car she was always kept away from. She searched under the seats and in the trunk of the car. As soon as she opened the trunk, she was taken aback by what she saw in front of her eyes. Another surprise. The trunk was full of several years of mail, all of which was addressed to Rebecca. Her own husband had been keeping letters from her that were from collection agencies, various bills, birthday cards, and a lot of other things. But why did he do this? Why had he been keeping so many secrets from his own family? Hurt. Confused, hurt, and angry were my only emotions for the next few days. I was running on fumes and couldn't eat or sleep. I felt so stupid for not seeing the signs. I'd been so busy with raising a child and building my practice at work. I was married to a drug addict, said Rebecca. But this was only the start of the list. Endless list. The addiction, the stealing, the lying. As if all this wasn't enough, that was something even more hurtful was to follow in Rebecca and her little daughter's life. The picture was soon going to uncover itself, and the man Rebecca had married would suddenly be like someone she never knew. Fraud. With tears in her eyes, Rebecca said he'd been lying to me for years, and my credit was unfortunately ruined because of it. I had no idea how easy it was to open credit cards and take out personal loans in your spouse's name. I thought I'd stayed on top of my bills, but had no idea he was secretly hiding things from me over the course of our 7-year marriage. False story. On further investigation, Rebecca found out that he'd not only lied about the money, but also his whole character. He lied about being in the Marine Corps, he lied about his education, his job. I'd been living nothing but lies for almost a decade of my life. Blamed herself. Rebecca felt like a fool who'd been ignorant all through her married life about who her husband actually was. He'd been taking undue advantage of her love for him and had been using her money for his own personal needs. But the most painful thing was yet to unfold. Shattering news. Rebecca's husband had been married to another woman, and not just that, he even had another daughter, and Rebecca was unaware of it. She said, "I thought to myself, how could life be so cruel? How could I be so dumb?" Questioning. When Rebecca confronted her fraud husband, he abandoned her and their daughter without giving any clarifications or answers. Rebecca and her daughter had been left alone in the middle of a crisis, but life had a very big and drastic change in store for them. Next step. After Rebecca realized she and her daughter were on their own now, she became strong and came back to her senses. She rented a hotel room and straight away went to the supermarket to buy clothes and toiletries that would help them keep up for a few days till she could figure something out. Hiding tears. Rebecca was hurt, but she was trying to heart it all inside her and be happy. She said, "My daughter and I tried to make the best of our vacation, as I called it, while I cried over the things we'd lost, wondering how in the world I'd sort through this mess. My sweet baby girl lost everything and we had no support there." A decision. After much thought, Rebecca decided the only feasible solution at the time would be to go back to her parents' house. She was heartbroken that at the age of 32, she'd have to go back and live in their childhood bedroom with her daughter. Tennessee. Rebecca said, "I left the beach and moved back to crummy old Tennessee. To make things worse, it was snowing when we moved back. It was March and snowing in Tennessee. How could this situation get any worse?" But that was the only place she could go in the kind of situation she was in. Worn out. At nights, Rebecca would cry silently. She missed the life that she'd built for herself with so much effort and affection, and she missed the part of her heart that she loved her ex-husband with. But things were going to get beautiful very soon. Pulled together. After crying for days and blaming herself, Rebecca finally decided to move on and look at things positively. She put herself together and started working extensively to pay off the debts her fraud husband had left in her name. Meeting friends. While Rebecca was happy her daughter was getting to spend quality time with her grandparents, she herself felt a little lonely and thought of catching up with her old friends in town. And this decision of hers would change her life forever. A text. Rebecca recalls, "I desperately needed to find some friends. I finally texted an old guy friend from high school, jokingly asked if he knew any hot single dads. This wasn't even relevant in our conversation, just a random thought that popped in my head. To my surprise, he said yes and immediately gave me a name. Up for it? After Rebecca had been betrayed so ruthlessly by her ex-husband, she wasn't sure if she was open to dating another guy so soon. She decided to search for the man whose name was Steven on Facebook and said, "My Facebook detective brain got to work. The single dad had a daughter who appeared to be the same age as mine." Coincidence? Rebecca showed her mother pictures of Steven and suddenly her mother shouted, "I know that little girl," in excitement when she saw Steven's daughter. It turned out Rebecca's mother's hairdresser was Steven's ex-wife's sister, and she had pictures of a little girl in her salon. Convincing. After such a coincidence, Rebecca's mom insisted that she should go and meet Steven, and Rebecca agreed to it after much convincing because somewhere deep inside she felt like maybe this coincidence was a sign of something magical. First hello. Rebecca had already searched for Steven on Facebook, so she decided to send in a text on the same platform. And to Rebecca's surprise, Steven replied right away. From that day onward, the two talked in texts and calls, and after a couple of them, they decided to meet each other. Jitters. Even though Rebecca was a 32-year-old mother of one and had been married once, she felt nervous this time. It felt very different that she was going to meet someone new after so long and after passing through such a hard time, and she couldn't contain the nervousness. The date. After spending the whole night wondering what it would be like to meet Steven, the day finally arrived and the two single parents met each other. And Rebecca's experience was, I had the biggest grin all day and I was smitten. Couldn't stop thinking about him. Too early. But Rebecca didn't want to keep herself in a fake light and make herself happy. After all, I was just damaged goods. With my awful credit and all the baggage I had, surely this guy would just move on and there was no reason to get my hopes up, she said. All planned. Even though Rebecca was skeptical about Steven, God had other plans for the two. Steven was equally smitten by Rebecca as she was by him. Days passed by and the two secretly loved each other, but Rebecca was scared to say anything because she didn't want Steven to run away. Trust issues. Since Rebecca had been betrayed once heavily, she was finding it very hard to trust Steven. To bring her out of the traumatic experience she'd faced, Steven did all he could. He showed her his bank statements, credit scores, up-to-date mortgage payments, and all that was required to help Rebecca regain the trust. Hard work. Steven put in all his energy and affection on letting Rebecca come out of the traumatizing experience and fall in love with him freely. She was glad she had him and said, "I was slowly letting him into my heart and he was helping me rebuild piece by piece. I certainly didn't need to be saved by anyone, but he swooped in and saved me." Inseparable. Rebecca and Steven spent as much time together as they could, and soon the two became inseparable. Not only the two of them, but even their daughters had become best friends and spent all day together. And soon Rebecca's life was going to change. One June morning, Steven went down on his knees and proposed to Rebecca. He wanted her to be his forever. Rebecca, on the other hand, was also sure about what she had to do. She said, "At that moment, I knew my intent to move out of Tennessee just wasn't part of the plan right now. Something brought me back home and love was going to keep me there." Wedding bells. In a small and intimate ceremony on the 15th of August, the two lovers said yes to each other and became a happy, loving family. From suffering intensely, Rebecca found love where she least expected to, and Steven and Rebecca moved in together in a small house. Love conquers all. After being married for some time, Rebecca and Steven moved into a bigger house and stayed happily with their two daughters. They were and are still determined to beat the odds of meeting so abruptly and having such a short courtship. A unique story. The couple is aware that people will question their relationship if they know the details. Rebecca says, "People are always curious to hear our story, so we just look at each other and smile. Usually our story goes, we met on a blind date and got married 4 months later. In the end, love wins." New member. And soon enough, when Rebecca was 35 years old in 2017, they welcomed a new member of the family. They had a child and it was yet again a beautiful daughter. The couple started off from a blank canvas and slowly painted it with love. No negativity. A battle together. Both Rebecca and Steven are fighting their battles with the exes. The drama hasn't ended yet and both are trying to fight for their custody of their little princesses. But neither of them is willing to give up and will do all that they can to win every battle that comes their way.